In the mountains of the Tharsis Boreal, there is a prodigious valley that stretches from the provincial border to the first northern lake. It is called Marinus Valley in the index, but the people here know its true name is Paradise. It is called Paradise because of a winding Cyan River, so purified by minerals from the bed that one may drink from the water with their own lips. It is called Paradise because a green ocean of strange conifers make the air so rich one need only draw breath twice in a minute. At the end of a childhood winter, my father took me to the valley to hunt for the first time. Such is tradition for all Mato children. The task was clear. I would find an animal. I would follow it. I would kill it. And then I would be transformed. After a quarter day of tracking, I found my animal in a large, slanted clearing. It was a deer with speckled fur, feeding obliviously on a cluster of ferns. I lay prone outside the clearing, looking down the scope of a long rosco. My father hid further back, watching. I exhaled deeply. My trigger finger moved, then paused. The deer had stopped feeding and was looking in my direction. There, in the still, liminal silence, I peered into its eyes. Something resided there. My hands began to shake. I pulled the trigger. The lead bolt struck the deer in a foreleg. It flailed wildly, screaming, drenching the tall grass with femoral spray before shambling toward the verdant bush. I leapt to my feet to give chase, but my father appeared beside me, snatched the weapon from my hands, and snarled. He grasped my shirt collar, cursing as he dragged me with him in the direction of the deer. I had not seen him angry in this way. He did not explain why, but I knew I had done an awful thing. We found the creature on the other side of the bush. It lay in a scarlet puddle and bleated softly. Without a word, my father handed me a steel knife and looked down at me with steely eyes. I took the blade and approached the animal. The deer whined as I knelt beside it and writhed feebly as I moved the blade over its heart. I thought that if I did not look at the eyes again, I could go through with it. Yet, as I raised the blade, my hands began to tremble once more. I could see the eyes. I was not looking, but I could see them in my mind. 2 giant black windows, wide with terror. The eyes turned to face me. I bolted from the ground. Dropping the knife, I ran from the deer and flew down the forested slope. My father cried out after me, but I did not slow. I had to get away. Through a storm of pinene, scraping branches, aching soles, and the choking tang of metal, I could still see the eyes. Sometime later, I found myself hunched over on the bank of the Blue River. I stared into the water, and the water showed me a sniveling, dirty, stupid creature that was not meant to tread in this place. I wanted to scream, but I noticed an insidious red snake disturbing my image and felt pain. I looked and saw a large gash in my right palm. I did not recall being cut, but the wound was deep, and blood was cascading down my fingers into the flowing water. My father and I had made a camp before setting out to hunt. I realized if I did not return there soon, I would never leave the valley. I clenched my fist around a piece of torn sleeve and started to walk. In the distance stood a smaller mountain, at the base of which was our camp. Not too far, I thought. I set my eyes on that mountain and followed the river west. Only when the sky began to darken did I notice the world around me was familiar. I did not know how far I had gone since I started walking, but when I looked around, it was as though I had not moved at all. I saw the same rocks under my feet, the same bend in the river beside me, and the mountain ahead looked no closer than before. The air had transformed into a fog that seemed to thicken with every step. It was hard to see the mountain now. I tried to remember the shape of the land, but like the world, the pictures in my mind were cloudy and blurred. I could no longer see the path ahead. The mountain was gone. I recalled my devastating failure, and it occurred to me that perhaps I did not deserve to leave this place. Maybe, I thought, maybe I should stay here forever. I collapsed by the river. As everything around me faded away, the sound of the flowing water was the tenuous last connection I had to the present. I tried to focus on that sound, the sound of moving water, the sound of life. A lone memory emerged from the deep. That moment from before, when I had looked at my image reflected in the water. I had seen the blood trickle from my hand into the river, undulating on its surface and melding with it, the red slowly dissipating until all that remained was the original cyan hue. I looked at my still bleeding hand and suddenly began to cry. I cried because I understood. I am not the things that make me. This blood that was once water, the cut sinew, plant and soil, the bones beneath, shell and rock. These things are not me. They are, for now, taking my shape. They are being me, and one day they will be other things. I am not a consequence. I am a process. I do not feel. I am the feeling. I do not think. I am the thinking. I am not the world made into man. I am the world. The deer was also the world. I had left a feeling creature to bleed, and so I had left the world to bleed. When I looked into the eyes of the deer, I had seen the world, and I had seen myself. I plunged my hand into the water. Overcome with cold, I turned my head away from the river, and there, on the bank, was the deer. It was looking at me. The deer was looking straight into my eyes, but I did not turn away. I looked back. I looked back into those eyes because I was no longer afraid. The deer grunted, turned away, and cantered into the undergrowth. I awoke in the clear, late morning. Stumbling to my feet, I examined my hand. The wound had become a deep scar. I set my gaze on the small mountain in the distance and followed the river toward it once more. There was still some way to go.